We are at try number 74. Let me jack this up a little bit. Let me raise this up. As my grandfather would say, we lift you up, and let's adjust this. Do not adjust your picture. This is in Technicolor. So just so you know, I just talked to a friend who told me that what you guys just saw, was an expensive bot. I did not know that. Let's see if this works. Okay, I got 1 thumbs up and 2 viewers. Good to see you guys. We're just trying this again here. Okay, so New Ingle, try to hit it. Try to do multiple comments in a row real quick. Try to just comment. Accountability, try to just comment real fast. Try to do like multiple comments within, just try to put a bunch of comments real quick. Subs only not on. Oh, Lord. It's already not set up. Damn it. Overturn Terry, my brother. Overturn Terry. We always want to learn something new. I used to open up all of my TikToks with today you're going to learn something that you did not know yesterday. Great, Brandon. I'm super happy you're here. So listen, okay, accountability. Thank you. I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you. Accountability for All just walked me through some stuff. We tried a couple things, guys. I want to just continue on the lecture tonight. I do not want to be sidetracked. Remember, whether it be some bad actors within BLM, there are some bad actors within BLM who call me a racist, which is incredible. And then we overturn Terry 100%, which by the way, guys, I have 3 small t-shirts in stock. I have 3 small t-shirts in stock. If anybody wants a t-shirt, they're $35. You have to contact me, send me a DM. Robert, please try to stay off of politics, even though I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I can't stand this guy. I cannot stand this guy. I cannot stand him. He is the dumbest guy we've ever had in office. No politics, okay? Please don't divide the room. What's up, Playboy? Good to see you, brother. Okay, so there's a lot of information to cover today. What I may end up doing is I may end up downloading the video we did earlier and then jumping right into it. If we get hit with one of these crazy bots again, I may just turn off the chat, and then you guys will have to. So you should watch, Ramon, you should watch the first 3 episodes of Overturn Terry. You should watch the first 3 episodes of Overturn Terry on this page. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. I can't talk about that. Obviously, I can't say anything. AC, hit me up in a DM. I'll send you my oh, here you go, AC. I do appreciate that. And by the way, if you just hit me on PayPal, I will directly send you, which by the way, I'm sending out about 50 posters tonight. I got about 50 people who have hit me on posters. These are my pay apps, and which by the way, I'm going to try to raise, I was going to try to raise a couple $100 tonight. These are my different apps, deletelaws.com. This is my Venmo. This is my Cash App. This is my PayPal. The gentleman earlier was asking me a few moments ago. He wanted to buy a poster. He wanted to buy some posters or whatever. Here are my pay apps. If you don't want to use a credit card on my website, which is totally understandable, hit me here and then just send me a DM. I'm really easy to reach. I respond to every single email. Thank you for being willing to buy my product. I really, really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. So, because if you didn't know that, oh Lord, I'm just gonna take that off. That's all I need is a mirror breaking on me tonight. I just don't need the frustration. Okay. Troy's got $5 off coupons for posters and for ebooks. Okay, so I want to jump right back into where we were because I don't want to allow trolls or bots to distract from the message of what we're trying to learn. Because remember, I am just one man. In the grand scheme of things, it's not me, it's we. We matter as a group when we are united together. And that's why I straddle the line of left and right, because I have some conservative values and definitely some very classical liberal values. I do not align with today's edition of what a liberal is being called today. I do not align with comrade. I don't align with that. Anybody else? Thank you, accountability. Accountability and I just sat on the phone for 30 minutes and we just worked this out. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I will continue to work on this so we don't get hammered by bots. I'm going to try to turn this up a little bit. So we were talking earlier about the inception of policing in America, where the police came from, how Robert Peel from we were talking about, okay, so now I remember where we were. We were talking about specifically, and then if I really appreciate the support. Someone just chimed in and said they're gonna, yeah, do me a favor, guys, just drop down right here. The room will grow and we will only get more people, especially as the message of Overturn Terry becomes a national movement. When you guys hear someone say, no justice, no peace, no racist police, you tell them to shut their pretty little mouth, stop saying stupid things, and you say to overturn Terry versus Ohio. Terry versus Ohio is the linchpin of the prison state, death state that we live in, and how police can legally depart you from this earth. And then they go home and go to bed to their friends and family and say, oh, I have a right to go home safe too to my family. Yeah, bud. And you signed up to an organization that will go down in history only second to the Hitler regime of the Nazis. Maybe Mao, Genghis Khan, Stalin, those dictators. But when you sign up to put on that costume and act like a Nazi on the American people, you are the problem. And I put a post up yesterday with my friend Mike, who's ex-NYPD, and he and I have a friendship, relationship, joust-ship. This guy literally wants to take credit for everything that I know. It is incredible to hear him say, I taught you about Terry. I've been studying Terry since 2002, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, I want to get back into it. And so now, if you guys remember, we were talking about the unionization of the Illinois Police Department, and I believe that's going to be in 1854. Yes, it is. 1854, Chicago cops unionized. And so, where are you guys watching from? Let me just get a barometer again for the room. It's going to take me a second to get my bearing again, but we're going to go right back into this lecture. I am not going to be deterred by trolls. I will not. I will continue to teach history. I will continue to teach law, and there's nothing and nobody that's going to stop me. If you imprison me, if you kill me, if you rape me, it won't matter, because we are creating an army of people who have the mantra of overturn Terry versus Ohio. And eventually, when we overturn Terry, you and your entire Nazi reign will come to an end. You will no longer be able to walk up to people and say, I'm suspicious of you, so you have to get on your knees. If you guys saw that audit the other day, the guy tried to immediately control my motion, which is arresting me. You do not get to arrest me because you've detained me during a traffic stop. And I don't know where detainment is up in the Fourth Amendment, because I don't see the word detainment in there. North Carolina in the house, California, NorCal. Good to see you guys. You guys do me a favor, hit the like button. Reach over and hit that like button, because what that does is that sends out a message to other people on YouTube and on the internet that the people who are watching this, I live in Southern California. I live in West Hollywood, California. I'm currently staying in Santa Monica. I put everything in storage. I was touring the country teaching kids how to overturn Terry versus Ohio, when some members from BLM said the most disparaging things about me, that there's defamation, and I am taking those people to court 100% taking them to court. So that's something that I'm definitely doing. So now, just a real quick synopsis of what we talked about a moment ago, in case you guys are coming. The live stream a moment ago was attacked by bots. It was disgusting. And so now as we move forward here, let me turn the light a little bit so we can see everything. So now what we're talking about here is the very first police in America were formed in 1704. They were the South Carolina Rangers, also were the slave catchers of America. Thank you guys for coming. I do appreciate it. And then what we talked about was that the first organized policing came from London. Please don't hack California. I live there, even though it's the leadership in California sucks right now, but that doesn't mean that California sucks right now. That means that the leadership in California sucks, because the actual state of California is still the most amazing place to live. that you could possibly imagine. It is absolutely a magical place to live. You can go hiking, skiing, and surfing in the same day, which is just incredible. You can go up into the mountains, you can go down into the sea, and you can also I don't want to become a California promo here. But so anyway, so this first slave patrol is formed in 1704, and this is the first form of policing in the United States of America. And this was 100% created so that your property or your slave could be rounded up, which, I don't think there's anybody in this room who's like, yay for slavery, right? So, and this is the resounding message of some of the bad leadership in the Black community on TikTok, that we as light-skinned or even some of you white people, that you guys are benefiting from white supremacy. And so what I've said to those people time and time again is there hasn't been a time in my life, ever once in my whole life, that I benefited from white supremacy. As a matter of fact, white supremacy only hurts our culture just like Black supremacy hurts our culture. And so we were talking earlier, and I said that some of the things I'm going to say are going to be a little bit hard to accept because a lot of the laws and the policing in America was set up specifically to hurt Black people. And that sucks, right? That sucks. And then what I was trying to get out earlier in the first 5 minutes of the live cast was that, some of those people on TikTok, they'll say, oh, we need to have uncomfortable conversations. And for me, it's not uncomfortable talking about our past and our history. What is uncomfortable, and I'm noticing from some other people, is accepting that policing and laws were literally set up against Black people. And some people revolted when I say these things, and some people even leave in my comment section that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. And let me just clue you in. As you can tell, I am one of the, I think I'm a fairly advanced historian, especially because of the deep analysis I've done. The Civil War was 100% about slavery, 100%. It was 100%. So I don't want to get lost on a racist slavery, not racist rant here. I want to focus primarily on policing. And so we talked about how the Bobbies were formed from Sir Robert Peel, that's P-E-E-L-E, and then that happened in 1829. And Sir Robert Peel's big thing was what? He was focusing on crime prevention that creates a standard of pre-crime policing. Who thinks pre-crime policing works? Does anybody here? Just go ahead and type right here, I think pre-crime policing works, or I do not think pre-crime policing works. If you want to just go ahead and type that right in, I want to hear who here believes that pre-crime policing works. Does anybody think pre-crime policing works? Does anybody think that? Who's like, yeah, I love pre-crime policing. Pre-crime policing means that a cop can look at your car or look at you and then just decide that precog. That's right. That's from that movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, which was a phenomenally written movie, by the way. One of my favorite movies of all time. Ramon, I don't know what pre-crime policing is either, but it's some ridiculously stupid idea. What doesn't work? You look like Biff. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. So I'm going to focus on the lecture here because we only have so much time before we're going to be shut down again. I'm sure because of the amount of knowledge that we're sharing together and the amount of deep historical analysis and what I call conceptual analysis, and you can look that up. Look up Jeffrey Kaplan's video on conceptual analysis, and you guys will start to understand the deeper meaning of learning that you're getting here today. This is a deeper meaning of knowledge. And so let me explain that right now, because we talked about Sir Robert Peel. They created a military organization. The first cop shop is in Boston in 1833. And then in 1837, the Charleston Police Department has 100 cops that have unionized. Their main function in Charleston, South Carolina is slave patrol. Again, slave patrol. And so then you're looking at regulating the movement of Black slaves and free workers. Because remember, when you were a slave or you were a worker in colonial America, you were pretty much a slave. And that's going to continue through the 14th Amendment of 1870, which is going to be here, the 14th Amendment of 1868 here. That's when the actual 14th Amendment. And I watch these back sometimes, and I talk so fast that sometimes I say things that aren't completely accurate. So if I make a mistake, look, I'm more than willing to be corrected. As a matter of fact, bonus points, if anybody corrects me when I say something wrong, because I'm human, and especially when I'm teaching on a live event and there's so many people coming through the room, sometimes I say, like the other day I said, when I said John Brown instead of one of the Enlightenment thinkers, and I just misspoke and I said the wrong name. So I'm not perfect. And so I totally agree with you, Prime. I totally agree with you, 1984. 100% I agree with you. Every single gun law, and it's so funny, we jump right back into the lecture. As we get right back into the lecture here, you guys can see the 1911 Sullivan Act here. This is what creates all the gun laws of today. And so we're right back into the lecture. We jumped right back into flow, which is absolutely perfect. And so then in 1845 here, 1845, you're going to have the New York police are going to unionize here. And what is that going to do? What is that going to do? What are the New York police unionizing going to do? That's going to create a ripple effect across America. Because remember, we are still imperializing the United States, because Western United States is not formed yet. We don't own this yet. I mean, we're just taking this in. Remember, the Louisiana Purchase is 1832, I believe. And then you're going to have the Mexican Annex, which is going to be 1846, I'm pretty sure. It was when we said, so what you're talking about, if New York cops are unionizing in 1845, then the West hasn't even been settled yet. This is where back here in 1845, if you steal someone's horse, it's still considered a death penalty crime, because there's not enough water for you to steal someone's horse west of Texas. And remember, we steal Texas from the Mexicans when we occupy it, and then we just take it over. And by the way, it's really hard to go by some of these terms, but the simple fact of the matter is that when the police unionized in 1845 here in New York, that unionization of policing in New York is going to spread west rather rapidly. And so then what you're looking at in 1846, the St. Louis, Missouri cops here, they're going to unionize as well, right here in 1846. And that's just 1 year after the New York police unionized. And then you're going to look at here, 1854, Chicago police unify. And what exactly does that mean? What exactly, now why is that important? Anybody? So when the Chicago police unionize here, why is that such an important time in our history when the Chicago police unionized in 1854? Why does that matter so much? Because the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 is where Northerners are going to be forced to bring slaves back down to the South. And I hate to use the word slaves, people forced into slavery. I think that's going to be a more appropriate way to say that. And so when the Illinois police unionized in 1854, why do they unionize? It is a direct rebuttal to the Fugitive Slave Act. And you have an ongoing debate going on within the Illinois Police Department of whether or not they're going to continue to take people who are forced into slavery, take them back down into the South. And this is an ongoing debate. And remember, even though up here in Chicago, what we're talking about is the 1854 unionization of police. But what we're also talking about here is the revolt against and what's going to happen here? What's going to happen up in Illinois in 1856, 1857 is the case of Dred Scott. Dred Scott's going to happen in Illinois. And why does that have importance? And in aligning, so you understand the conceptual analysis of policing, why does that have such a gigantic factor? Because you have within the Illinois Police Department the discussions of whether or not when an enslaved human being escapes up to Chicago, and when Dred Scott is sued by his brother-in-law, by his former owner's widow's brother. Do you guys understand that? So the Dred Scott case of 1857 has a direct correlation with the Chicago, I say Chicago, but it's Illinois, I'm sorry, it is specifically Chicago, so I'm misspeaking a little bit. The 1854 unionization of Chicago Police Department has a direct correlation with the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act and then the 1857 case of Dred Scott. And what is the ongoing conversation within the Chicago Police Department? Are we going to return human beings who have escaped slavery in the North and take them back down to the South? And what is the overall sentiment of the Chicago Police Department? Yes. Yes, they are. They are going to return runaway human beings who escaped from slavery. And this is why the title of this video is Bad Policing in America, because in 1854, when the Chicago police unionized, here, what are we talking about specifically? The ongoing debate is whether or not they're going to return runaway human beings who have escaped from slavery. And the resounding answer from the Chicago Police Department is yes, we're going to do that. And so now what do we start to understand? We start to understand that even though the vast majorities of Northerners do not agree with and want to abolish slavery, the police don't feel the same way. And so that's why the title of this video is Bad Policing in America, because it is an ongoing thing. And so then as we push forward here, so then I'm going to stay really focused on policing here, because believe me, I can get way sidetracked here on all kinds of things. So now what happens here from 1850, what happens? The Mexican annex, where we take the Southwest, we purchase Oregon up here in 1854, I believe it is. And then right through here, we take over California. We take over the western portion of what used to be Mexico. And so then we have the California is created, but it's not called California just yet. And so, but what you are going to get is the Los Angeles police over here are going to unionize in 1869. And why does that have such, why does the Los Angeles Police Department unionizing have such a big effect on America? Because now you have unionized police from Boston all the way over to the West Coast in Los Angeles, California. And even though it's not even officially, you know, I'm not even sure about that. Is it officially called Los Angeles back then? I'm going to have to look into that. So now right here, you're looking at, now, what exactly does unifying police mean? What is the actual terminology when we talk about the unification of police forces in these different cities that have been formed in America? Because now we're talking about, what year is it? 1869. What year do we actually create? Now what's going on in 1869? From 1863 till 1876, you have the Federalist Papers being written. 13 years of papers being written that are going to push forward the idea of federalism, of the Federalists, the federal government, of having a unified federal government, meaning that the court system, the executive, there's going to be a federal Congress, you see? And so now all of these different police forces have unified. And so what I wanted to kind of define to you guys so that you guys could start to think about these things on a bigger scale is, what exactly does it mean? Unified means that there's going to be cop rules and cop standards. Okay, so now what this is going to do is, of course, when you get any bureaucracy, and anybody read Jordan Peterson, when you talk about structure or hierarchy, that's going to be considered more towards the right. If you're looking at me here, it's going to be towards the right. When you talk about substantive process and substantive humanity, that's going to be on the left. So every time you have a hierarchy, that's going to be a right-leaning structure, because there's going to be a set of rules created. Anytime you have rules set up, the biggest question starts to be, those who create the rules, how authoritarian could they become? And so when you talk about the unification of cops, that means limited police authority. Police powers are defined by law. Local control of population by local governments. And remember, so what are we talking about? 1869, LA cops unify. And so what does that mean? That means that you're talking about a localized government. And this is going to tie directly into the 10th Amendment. And what does the 10th Amendment of the United States say? That all laws listed by federal power are going to be listed here in the 10th Amendment. And so what are you talking about? You're talking about the hierarchy, the structure. And every time you talk about structure, you talk about what? Authoritarian control. And so Is it authoritarian because you have a structure? It could be. And so when the police unify on the West Coast, on the East Coast, you're talking about fragmented law enforcement groups share responsibilities for the same area and the populations, causing problems in communication. The fight for power. And you're really going to see this burst wide open in Prohibition. And you're going to read about that in great detail in the Wickersham Commission. I haven't sent out the Wickersham Commission to a lot of people here, but I want to make sure that you guys know I do have a small sliver of the Wickersham that I have read that I would like to forward to you guys. Make sure you hit me with your email address. I don't charge anything for it. It's absolutely free. So make sure I can get it out to you guys. Get me your email addresses so you guys can read that. I'm jumping ahead 50 years here. I'm going to stay right back here in 1870. So now what's going to happen? So now from 1878 to 1886, Cincinnati has 7 police chiefs. Why does Cincinnati have 7 police chiefs? And check those years. 1878. Meaning that Cincinnati is doing what? Flexing its state rights, right? And so when you talk about flexing your state rights, why do they have 7 police chiefs? Because it's corrupt. Because like I said, when you have a structure or a hierarchy, it's like anything. Who always cheats a monopoly? The banker, right? I mean, put it into context so you can understand it. I know I'm saying a lot of things here and we're going rather quickly because there's a lot of things to cover. But remember, when you talk about the people who make the rules, what's the exact Latin term? Who will watch the watchers? Have you guys heard of that before? Have you heard of that exact term before? Who will, it's le cara, I can't pronounce it, it's a Latin term, but who will watch the watchers? For 5 points, if anybody wants to put the Latin term up of who will watch the watchers. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you for the promo, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. I sell this poster and I sell my ebook. So if you guys want to pick it up, thanks a lot. But so now here, and then from 1879 to 1897, so 1879, 1889, 1899. So that you're talking about 18 years, Chicago is going to have 9 different police chiefs. And why is that? Because it's corrupt. It's corrupted. The people who make the rules are involving themselves in what? In all kinds of prostitution and gambling rings. Because remember, there's no prohibition back there. So people are running alcohol, and back then there was no real drug laws. The real drug laws aren't going to come into effect until the Harrison Act of 1914. The Harrison Act of 1914 is going to put into effect where you're going to have a prescription from your doctor to get certain opioids, and including what's added to the 1914 Harrison Act? Marijuana. And why is it added? Because of the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911. I know I'm giving you guys a lot of data here, but your brain will put the data into the proper compartments so that you can eventually create conceptual analysis in your mind, whether you want to do it or not. The more information you put in your mind, the more your brain will put it together for you. And you'll get a larger view of history and why the police system in America has always been bad. Always. And so now from 1876 to 1886, Cincinnati has 7 police chiefs and who are killing each other, killing people in the streets. From 1879 to 1897, Chicago has 9 police chiefs. Because what are they doing? They're killing, they're raping, they're pillaging, they're doing the worst things to society. And then from 1879 to 1889, LA, so that's 1879, 1889. So that's only 10 years. In 10 years, LA goes through 13 police chiefs. And what did I say earlier? What did I say earlier? I said that the West is only taken in 1850. So we only get the West from 1850. So then just 30 years later in LA out here, you have 13 police chiefs in 10 years. Why is that? Because there's nobody watching the watchers of who makes the rules for policing. Do you see? It's been an ongoing problem since the beginning. As long as we don't have checks and balances on police, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Why do you have 13 police chiefs in LA in 10 years from 1879 to 1889? Why is that? How come? Why is that? Why is that? Why do you have 13 police chiefs? Well, because when you don't have checks and balances on power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what we're looking at. And what is the solution to absolute power? Checks and balances. But yet we continue police commission after police commission to say we need to put checks and balances on police. And you can go back to the beginning of the formation of police, all the way back to the Bobbies in 1832 in London. It wasn't working out there. It's still not working out there. And so, by the way, just a real quick pop quiz. What did London do? What did London do because of how corrupt police were? Anybody know the answer? I'm going to wait. Does anybody know the answer? What did London do? Tell me what they did. What did London do because they could not get a handle on the bad policing that started with the Bobbies in 1829? I said 1832. That was actually 1833 was the first cop in Boston. What did they do? What did London do? What did London do today? We the people are auditors. Great, great, great. But what happened in London? Besides disarming all the cops in London, what did they do in London? Specifically, what happens in London today? What are the checks and balances on police in London today? Anybody? Come on. Has anybody been over to London? What do they have over there? What do they have over there that they don't have here? Or they do have here, they just don't give us access to it. What is it? What is it? Come on. 3, 2, 1. A centralized camera system. What do they call it? I can't remember the exact terminology for it, but a video system. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Resistance. I appreciate you coming. You guys hit your like button if you would, please. We'll try to get some more people in the room. So London, what they did when they figured out that they could create a, what do they call it? What's the actual term of it? That CCTV. That's right. London, because police are so corrupt, as soon as the 60s come around, what does London do? They put in a camera system all up and down the streets because the cops are so corrupted. You think CCTV was just to monitor the citizens? No, 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 no. CCTV was to monitor the cops. Yeah. Welcome to it. Welcome to knowledge. So that's what I'm trying to say. And so now you're gonna have you're going to have 7 police chiefs in Cincinnati. You're going to have 9 police chiefs in Chicago, and you're going to go through 13 police chiefs in Los Angeles in 10 years. And so now what's going to happen in policing around the time of the Constitution being signed and the Bill of Rights being ratified? I'm 100 years. I'm 100 years ahead. Sorry about that. What's going to happen in 1879? So we're 100 years past that. And so now what's going to happen as we hit the beginning of the 20th century? What's going to happen in policing? So so just so you guys can take a look at that right here. In 1879 to 1889, which is 100 years after the Constitution is ratified, you go through 13 police chiefs. So then now what happens now that we can see that the hierarchy or the structure or the system created in policing is going to give police absolute power? What's going to happen? The politicians and the elitists are going to then charge the police. The police then have to pay to become a cop. Right here. Men pay to become entry-level cops, $300 in New York and $400 in San Francisco. And when is that? That's the very beginning of the 20th century, 1900. I'm sorry, it's 1890. So it's the very end of the 19th century, the very beginning of the 20th century. You're going to have police that are going to pay $300 or $400 to become cops. Well, why would you pay to become a cop unless you're going to make that money back by shaking people down on the streets? Now, London knows that, and so they're going to create CCTV just 100 years later. And so, and by the way, only men can be cops. Only men can be cops. And why? How come only men can be cops in the early 19th century, in the late 19th century, in the early 20th century? How come only men can be cops? Because what is the police's first organized crime? Anybody? What is the police? What are police officers' very first organized crime? What is it? What is it? Starts with a P, ends with a P. What is it? The very first organized police crimes are what? Besides gambling, what is it? If you want to, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have to collect some cash. Thanks. I appreciate that. I know my website's been hacked, guys. My website has been hacked. If you guys saw earlier, these are my cup of coffee funds. I call them right there. If you guys want to take a screenshot, if you would, please take a screenshot. Those are my Cash App, my Venmo, and my PayPal. Thank you for donating. I do appreciate it. This is what I do for a living, and I am not going to stop doing it. If you want to write that down, those are my Cash Apps, those are my Venmos, and those are my Pay Apps. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. For some reason, my website has been hacked. If you guys have not noticed, my website has been hacked. Very good. You got it right there. You got it. The very first organized crime that police are a part of is pimping. That's right. That's right. That's exactly correct. And so why is a cop willing to pay $300 in 1890, $400 in San Francisco to become a cop, $300 in New York, $400 in San Francisco? Why would you be willing to pay to become a cop? Because you're going to become a pimp. Not only become a pimp, you're going to become a ladies' man. Because what's the oldest profession in the world? Prostitution. And so why do you think the term call girl exists? Have you guys ever heard of the term call girl? Has anybody ever heard of that term call girl? Do you know where that comes from? The term call girl comes from police invented, in case you didn't know this, the very first shortwave radios that cops still use today, cops invented those. I don't know who gets credit for actually inventing the shortwave radio that police use. The call box, the police call box, thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate that accountability. So the very first call box, the very first shortwave radio is done like this. So then when a guy leaves the bar and he's drunk and he walks out the door and there's a bobby standing there. Police in America were called bobbies after Sir Robert Peel, 1829, London. And so they're going to call them bobbies. And when they leave the bar, they walk outside. They say to the cop, get me a girl. He gets on the radio and says, hey, this guy down here wants a girl. And it's called a call girl, a call girl. The very first organized crime that police are involved in, it could have been gambling, of course, but the very first organized crime where you're going from radio to radio and all the other cops can hear that I'm giving a call and I'm going, hey, Brad, send me down a chick. I got this guy down. Nikola Tesla invented the radio. Thank you. I appreciate that. But the policing apparatus perfected those shortwave radios. And I read about it in great detail. So I know this is true. Of course, I'm more than willing to learn more information. If you want to send me more information on that, I would appreciate that. Thank you. So then as we move forward, so now that's the reason why, though. That's the reason why cops are willing to pay $300 in New York, $400 in San Francisco to become a cop, because they're going to make that money back right away and they're going to get laid. They're going to get laid by one of the call girls. And without checks and balances, this has gone on since the beginning of policing, and it will continue. It will continue. It will not stop. It will not get better. We will not have a citizen review board or a commission that's ever going to clean up the dirty trough of policing in America today until we have a third party for checks and balances, an independent third party that is digitally monitored by that citizen review board. You see, you have to have checks and balances on top of checks and balances. And who said that? It was James Madison. James Madison said you have to have men's ambition to counter men's ambition. Where did James Madison get that idea? From Montesquieu's book, Spirit of Laws, that talks about what checks and balances. And as long as we don't have checks and balances on policing, we're going to continue to have the pimping and the raping and the murdering. You don't think I'm not even kidding about the murdering. And we're going to get into prohibition in a minute, where the cops are the number one killers of people in America during Prohibition. The number one group of people that killed people in America during Prohibition was not Al Capone, was not Lucky Luciano, it was cops. Until we have checks and balances on cops, it will not get better. It will not get better. So then in 1894, you're going to have what's called the Lennox Committee. Has anybody ever heard of that? The Lennox Committee. Has anybody heard of the Lennox, Lenox Committee? Has anybody ever heard of the Lennox Committee before? And the Lennox Committee, cops pay bribes for promotions, $1,600 to promote to sergeant, $15,000 to become a captain. Now, let me ask you a question. According to the Lennox Committee, why would a cop pay $1,600 to become promoted to a sergeant and pay $15,000 to become a captain? Why? Why would you pay that amount of money? Because you're going to make that money back in spades. I'm here getting a cup of coffee fund from people who care deeply about America. But I'm not paying $15,000 in 1894. Can anybody do me a favor? Can anybody do the math on that on your Google computer or on your DuckDuckGo? I know people don't like to use Google. Can you guys tell me how much $15,000 was in 1894? I'd like to know that information. You see? So now in 1894, it's the Lennox Committee, Lenox Committee. So now 15 grand in 1894. I'm just going to take a guess. I'm going to guess in 1894, 15 grand is going to be $95,000. That's what I'm going to guess. How you doing, Mid? I'm going to guess that it's going to be $95,000. So bonus points to anybody who can look up what $15,000 was worth in 1894. Is that what it was? Was it $500,000? Was it 500 grand? So now imagine the money they're making back. Imagine the money they're making back. And who are they cheating? The people of America. And who are they cheating today? The people of America. It just chaps me. So then you're going to keep going through. So now 1894, if they're paying $1,600 to be a sergeant and they're paying $15,000 to be a captain, in 1913, with the Curran Committee, Curren, $484,000. So I was only off by 400 grand, okay? So now you're going to have the Curran Committee. The Curran Committee is going to come in 1913, Curren. Please take a note of that, the Curran Committee. If someone will type this into notes here, type it into the live chat because I want people to watch us back on the live chat. Curren, the Curran Committee investigated collusion between police with gambling, prostitution, and the creation of organized crime. Did I know it's Curren? I believe it's the Curren, the Curran Committee. And so now what you're talking about is exactly what I just said. Didn't I just say that? What was 15? And since we looked that up, what was $15,000 in 1894? How much was $15,000 in 1894? It was $500,000. So then by 1913, the Curran Committee is investigating collusion between police and gambling rings. Remember, you're not going to have the Harrison Act until 1914. And the Harrison Act isn't going to have any teeth until the 1934 Controlled Substance Act, which I don't know if I have it on this poster. And so what are you looking at here? What are we specifically looking at here? The Curran Committee is going to say that police are colluding in prostitution and gambling rings, but we've already known that. By the time, let me ask you guys a question. By the time it gets to a committee, by the time it gets to a Mullen Commission or to a Wickersham Commission or even back to a Wickersham Commission of 1929 that's going to publish in 1931, by the time there's a committee, you and I, the general public, we already know what's going on. You and I are telling other people, dude, are you seeing the cops running the prostitutes? We already know it, right? But it's a great big open secret that only you and I are talking about on the street. The powers that be, remember the layer cake. The elitists control the government controls the cops control the people. It's a 4-layer cake, and we're the bottom rung. The elitists control the government, controls the cops, control the people. And so by the time the people have reported enough, by the time it gets back up to the elitist, to someone who actually gives a damn, who's going to say, wait a minute, this is absolutely ridiculous. We can no longer allow this to happen. And you get the Curran Committee of 1913. Does anybody understand what the Curran Committee actually was? Who ran the Curran Committee? Who was in charge of the Curran Committee, and what was their motivation? And why did they start the Curran Committee? How come? Why? My 2 favorite questions. How come? Why? So now as we move forward, in 1921, a gentleman named August Vollmer, August Vollmer. And what's going to happen in 1921? Anybody? In 1921, police are going to arm. Police are going to carry guns because 1921 is the beginning of what? Prohibition. And who's running prohibition? The cops are running prohibition. I mean, so if we're going to stay on the timeline here, 1921 is when prohibition is going to, the prohibition is going to begin with the Volstead Act of 1919. I believe it's June of 1919. And so what you're going to have is you're going to have the Volstead Act, which is going to then morph itself into the 18th Amendment because the Volstead Act is going to start off with an executive order. And and who's going to be the biggest proponent of the Volstead Act? Who's going to be the biggest proponent of the Volstead Act? William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft. This guy right here. William Howard Taft is one of the most reprehensible people in history that you will ever read about. William Howard Taft, if you didn't know it, we tried to colonize the Philippines from 1899 until 1912, 1913. And so William Howard Taft, he sat down to the Philippines in 1890 and 1900, and he stays in the Philippines from 1900 till 1904. He's going to be called the governor of the Philippines, this great big fat white guy. When I'm talking fat, I'm talking fat. I'm talking this guy can't fit through the door. He can't fit in bathtubs. He is so gigantically fat. And remember, back then, if you were fat, you were just rich, rich, rich. People were not fat back in 1900. They weren't. So he was the governor of the Philippines in 1900. And what did he set up in the Philippines? Rape camps, concentration camps. Can anybody define what I know T-Roy probably can, because he was in my lectures on TikTok. What is a concentration camp? Can anybody tell me what a concentration camp is that this piece of garbage set up? Can anybody tell me what a concentration camp is? A concentration camp. Anybody know the actual definition of understanding of when I say concentration camp? Do you know what I'm saying when I say concentration camp? Now, you've heard the term because of Hitler and because of the atrocities committed against 6 million Jewish people. You've heard the term concentration camps, but do you actually understand when I say concentration camp what the terminology means? Do you know what that means? So a concentration camp is when you take a large group of people and you put them in a concentrated area. So you take a large group of people, you put them in a concentrated area, and then you re-educate them. Similar to what's about to happen in America mid-January when they say there's been a gigantic outbreak of a global bird flu, and now everybody's going to have to be re-educated if they're not willing to buy into a mandate. And so I don't want to get too off track here, but what William Howard Taft did in the Philippines was he set up concentration camps where he took a large group of Filipinos, stuck them in a tiny area, and then re-educated them. But he also set up rape camps. William Howard Taft is a disgusting person, a disgusting human being. And so when the Volstead Act happens in 1919, who's the biggest proponent of the Volstead Act? It's William Howard Taft. As a matter of fact, he does so much pushing of prohibition that he then gets nominated to the Supreme Court to be the Chief Justice. Because he's doing such a good job pushing a mandate. If you are willing to do the bidding of the government, you only get promoted, just so you know. And so now what's going to happen? And so now keep track here. Now here's the really, really disgusting thing about August Vollmer. Does anybody know who August Vollmer is? Can you type that down in here? And we're going to talk about the history of policing here. It's August Vollmer. You know how to spell August, and Vollmer is spelled V-O-L-L-M-E-R. V-O-L. Can someone type that in here so that when people read the chat later, they can look up the gentleman's name named August Vollmer? August Vollmer, what he's going to do is he's going to create I don't think he invents it, but he's going to push this new August Vollmer, thank you so much. I appreciate that. August Vollmer, thank you. So August Vollmer is going to perpetuate and push forward this new technology called what? A lie detector. And if you could imagine in 1920, when August Vollmer is going to create a national crime data compilation where he's going to start to create statistics on criminology. August Vollmer is. And who is August Vollmer? Does anybody know who August Vollmer is? He is a former military guy who is all about authoritarian. So 1921, when is World War I? 1914 to 1918. August Vollmer is going to come back from war and do what? He's going to push a militarized police that have a weapon or a sidearm, a gun. And so August Vollmer goes down in history as being one of the biggest authoritarians in the history of America. Did you know that? And so when he pushes the push of lie detectors and a national crime database or compilation, this is going to, the FBI is going to take this over later. We're going to get into that in a second. But then what this is going to do is this is going to create scientific policing equals professionalism. And so, but what is scientific policing? Hooking you up to electrodes and seeing if your heart rate goes fast when you're questioned about murder. Let me just tell you something. If you hook me up to electrodes, anybody just type the dang word for me, will you? And so when August Vollmer starts pushing lie detectors, that's where they hook you up to electrodes and they then test your heart rate and your perspiration and your brain waves to see if your brain waves are going crazy, right? And so what's happening when you get hooked up to that machine? You're nervous. And if your heart rate spikes when you ask questions, well, then you're guilty. And could you imagine the amount of pressure that's going to be put on you? Is that what it is? Electrodes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. For some reason, I simply couldn't get the word out of my mouth. Electrodes. And so that's what the lie detector is going to be based on, is simply your heart rate. And if your brain spikes when you have some shot of adrenaline go through your body. Well, if you sit me down and ask me about the murder down the street and you put a bunch of cops around me, guess what's going to happen to my brain and my heart rate? It's not going to work so good. It's not going to work so good. I'm going to be a little bit disoriented and I'm going to be a little bit upset as I'm being questioned about a murder that I didn't do. And then, by the way, I'm a very fire emotionally guy. So if they ever asked me to take a lie detector, I would tell them to go have a ham sandwich. That's what I would tell them to do. I would tell them to go have a ham sandwich. And so I'm just going to try to make sure that I keep it clean here for the kids. So now right here, and then what August Vollmer's big push is number one, to arm police. And why does he want to arm police? Because we already know from the Quran Committee of 1913 that the cops are the biggest criminals in town. We already know that. And so what August Vollmer is going to do in 1920 is arm those criminals. And what do we have today? We have the exact same thing on the streets today. Who do you fear when you drive down the street? Do you fear the gangbanger? No. Do you fear someone who's threatened your life? No, I'm not afraid. I've had so many death threats this year, I can't even count them all. You think I'm afraid of those people? Nope. Who do I have to be afraid of? Police. They're the armed criminals. They're the armed gang in our country. Sorry, guys, you signed up to that organization. You're a part of it. You didn't say, hey, sign me up to the third-party organization called the Montesquieu. You didn't ask for that, did you? You signed up to be authoritarians. I signed up to help people. You would have signed up to be a nurse or a counselor or a therapist if you actually want to help people. But the truth is, you don't want to go get that education. You just want to get a badge and get $100,000 a year and get your benefits for you and your family, and it's about you. So August Vollmer is going to push the idea of scientific policing equates to professionalism. And then guess what happens in 1929? What's going to happen in 1929? You're going to have the Wickersham Commission is going to start in 1929 and be published in 1931 and 1932. There's 29 volumes of the Wickersham Commission. And guess who's on the board of the Wickersham Commission? Can you believe it? August Vollmer. August Vollmer is on the Wickersham Commission. That's not going to be corrupt, is it? That's not. And so what do you think he says? Do you think that when they say that policing is corrupt, that they're running the alcohol? Do you think the recommendation of August Vollmer and the Wickersham Commission is to relax prohibition in America? Yes or no? Who thinks that August Vollmer says that they should relax prohibition in America? Who thinks that? Who thinks that? Who thinks that August Vollmer's recommendation and the Wickersham Commission's recommendation is that we relax prohibition? Or do they say to double down? And even though the industrial prison complex is created from 1920 to 1933, where we actually we go 3 times, 4 times more people in prison, August Vollmer says ratchet it up. Lock up more cops, lock up more Italians, lock up more Irish. That's what he says here. That's what he says. And this is based on alcohol only. So remember, you're going to have the 1914 Harrison Act that is going to create the idea that you have to get your prescription for cannabis or for Lawton, it's called the Lawton, or for opioids are going to come in the 1914 Harrison Act. And this all has to do with Harry Anslinger. Actually, you know what? This does fit in this talk, so let's bring it up. Let's bring it up and let's talk about it. Triple down. That's right. Triple down. Triple down. A little easier for me to come on this poster over here just so I can pop in on this real quick, okay? So now let's get into some pretty fantastic detail here, because I truly want you guys to understand that what Harry Anslinger did, was not just based on racism. It simply wasn't. It simply was not. It wasn't. I mean, I would like for that to be true. I would like for everything that Harry did to be based simply on racism, but it's just not true. It's just not true. You know, when you have the 1914 Harrison Act here, right? The 14 Harrison Act, what this is going to do is it's going to make it so you have to get your prescription, and they're going to add cannabis to the list of controlled substances that you then have to get a prescription from your doctor. And this has a direct correlation of the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911. And so Harry Anslinger, he's going to connect with Andrew Mellon, and he's going to become the Federal Narcotics Agency in 1930. But Andrew Mellon is going to invest in William Randolph Hearst and Lamont DuPont. And J.D. Rockefeller is still chairman of the board of the Standard Oil Corporation. And so when the Standard Oil Corporation is broken up, what's going to happen is they're going to then say, we don't want hemp to get any traction against the newspaper industry here by William Randolph Hearst, or by the pharmaceutical or nylon industry or the paper industry or the oil industry led by these gentlemen here. And so Harry Anslinger, using racism and saying that marijuana will make darkies think that they're as good as white people, it will give white women syphilis because they sleep with black guys, he's actually dating the daughter of Andrew Mellon. Plastics, that's exactly correct. And so what you're talking about here is you're talking about a total scam under the guise of racism. But the truth is, the real truth is that Harry did it all. He did it all because he didn't want hemp to get any kind of traction in America. Harry Anslinger is going to be born in 1892. He's going to be born in 1906, 1960. Harry Anslinger is going to be born the same year as Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. And Harry Anslinger is going to cut his teeth working for the railroad, which was, it doesn't matter. I want to stay focused on the cop thing. So Harry Anslinger is going to work on the railroad. Who was the guy who started the railroad companies, and he owned all the railroad companies? What was his name? I'm drawing a blank on it. So now what Harry Anslinger is going to do, he's a cop. He's born in 1896, 1906. By 1910, he's working security for the railroad company. And Harry Anslinger, he is smart as a whip, guys. You have no idea. This guy is a genius. He is an absolute genius. And so Harry Anslinger, by 1906, 1910, he's 16 years old. He's one of the head security, Vanderbilt, thank you. And so he's working on Vanderbilt's railroads. And who is Vanderbilt getting all the money from? From J.D. Rockefeller. Because remember, when the railroads are created, what happens is J.D. Rockefeller then bribes Vanderbilt and the different railroad contractors, and then he gets all of his oil put on the railroads as compared to other companies that want to get their products put on those cars on the railroads. And so what happens is Harry Anslinger, when they sell Standard Oil, and this is a very important correlation. You guys have to understand this when you understand policing in general in America, because it's absolutely disgusting. The reason why the 1914 Harrison Act happens at all whatsoever is because of the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911. When a bunch of elitists, and they are white, like it or not, when a bunch of elitists buy up the different subsidiaries of Standard Oil, then by 3 years later, you have a conglomerate or I guess you could call it a association of oilmen who look over in Mexico and they go, oh man, they're using hemp for energy over there. And then they look over in India and it's called Indian hemp. And so Harry Anslinger, he's able to get the 1914 Harrison Act. He's only 18 years old. 1896, 1906, 1916. Okay, so now when you get here to 1914, when the Harrison Act is done this, the reason why they do it is because Standard Oil doesn't want hemp to get any kind of traction going at all whatsoever. That's why cannabis is added to this. And this is all based on making sure that the powers that be are going to make sure that you're not going to be able to get pharmaceuticals because they don't want you to have any interruption with the company of Lamont DuPont. And Andrew Mellon, and just so you guys know, what's really, really crazy is I researched the other day Black Pete. You guys, has anybody here ever heard of Black Pete from the Netherlands? Have you ever heard of that before? Has anybody ever heard about that? I appreciate that, Donald. It's on delete laws. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Black Pete is a very mythological devil creature from. Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't look at comments. I got to stay super focused. So Black Pete. There's a website called Tracking the Slave Trade from Africa to the Americas through the 18th century, through the 18th and 19th century. And the tracking of the slave trade on the website, Tracking the Slave Trade, I think it is. It's on a video I can post a link to in the bio here when I finish this. The tracking of the slave trade is a grant from, guess who? The Andrew Mellon Foundation. And what does Andrew Mellon have a vested interest in doing? Making sure that there is a racial divide in America. And who is funding the current website of Tracking the Slave Trade? The Andrew Mellon Foundation. I can show you the video. It's a 16-minute long video by a Dutch YouTube creator that is so comprehensive. I actually made a video. I put it on my TikTok. I'll post it on my YouTube as well. So why does Andrew Mellon fund the tracking of the slave trade through the North Atlantic waters? Because he wants to make sure that there's a racial divide created today. The Andrew Mellon Foundation is still providing a racial divide in America today. He's still doing it today from the grave. The Andrew Mellon Foundation. You guys can look at that video on my TikTok. It's in a 4-part, 3-minute series. It's incredible to me. It's incredible. So let me stay focused on policing. So now Andrew Mellon right here, what's going to happen here is he's going to marry Andrew Mellon's daughter, Harry Anslinger is. Because when he goes to World War I from 1914 to 1916, when he goes there, he's a war hero. Did you know that? He's a double agent. He learns German in the military. He goes and performs as a double agent for America, spying against the Germans. He has an illustrious war career that nobody talks about, that nobody gets into detail about. And then when he gets back, he doesn't just leave the war in 1918 and come back to America. No. He gets stationed in the Caribbean for 10 years. I'm not kidding. 9 years, something like that. He gets stationed in the Caribbean. And what's he doing there? He's chasing down drug runners. When you actually know the history, it is so absurd and so morbid that it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting. It really is. And so what's going to happen here, Harry, I can do an entire video on Harry Anslinger. He's just the most disgusting person, besides maybe William Howard Taft. But remember, they're in the same time period. They're frickin' frack. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. So I don't want to get too far off track here. But if you don't talk about Harry Anslinger and what he did and what his contribution to ruining America is through policing, well, then you really don't have a conversation about policing. It's like when you talk about cops and you haven't read the Mullen Commission, which I give away for free, which is yours for free. All you have to do is say, hey, here's my email address. Send me the Mullen Commission. I will send it to you for free. Okay? So you have got to make sure that you read that Mullen Commission. And so now in 1829, we were talking about August Vollmer. It's just so sad because I don't want to segue away from Harry. So then in 1929, you're going to have the Wickersham Commission here. The Wickersham Commission. How do you spell the guy's last name? Anslinger, Anslinger. Anslinger, Anslinger, Harry Anslinger. And which, by the way, I do have a large Mullen Commission, Mollen. I do have that available, paginated for you. I spent a long time putting that Mullen Commission together for you guys. Yeah, is my website hacked? Is my website hacked? Is that what's going on right now? Terrible. So, anyway. So now what's going to happen is, and then as we continue forward, so a lot of people, as you guys have known, you've heard about the Wickersham Commission. I do give that away for free. But then there's another commission called the Seabury Commission. Has anybody heard of the Seabury? S-E-A-B-U-R-Y, Seabury Commission. S-E-A-B-U-R-Y. Can someone type that in there? Harry J. Anslinger. But then type in the Seabury Commission, if you would, please. S-E-A-B-U-R-Y. And the Seabury Commission in 1932 specifically talks about prohibition-related crimes with policing. And so now I'm gonna step between the two. I'm gonna go between the 1929 Wickersham and the 1932 Seabury, S-E-A-B-U-R-Y, Mark, S-E-A-B-U-R-Y. Thank you, I appreciate that. The Seabury Commission. And by the way, bonus points for anybody who emails me a copy of the Seabury. I did scan it online. I took a look at it one time, but I didn't go into great detail because I'd already been reading the Wickersham, and I was already so far into the Wickersham that I didn't want to stop and get off target here. And so now what you're talking about here is in 1929, in case you guys didn't know this, it's not on the poster. In 1929, you're going to have what's called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre is when you have two rival alcohol gangs. This is the height of Prohibition. Remember, we have the modern industrial prison complex created by Prohibition, and then in 1929, you're going to have what's called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and that is where police or people dressed as police are going to take shotguns and mow down a dozen other gang members. And this is at the very end of Prohibition, and the people of the United States of America, they are sick and tired of Prohibition. They are sick and tired of people dying, going to jail, the corruption of the police. They're so sick of it. People know about Capone, they know about Lucky Luciano, they know about the alcohol gangs of the Italian, but you know what's really going on is the Boston Police Department is so corrupted. It's so deeply corrupted in prostitution and running alcohol that the people of America are just sick of Prohibition. And so what happens is the Seabury Commission, but then in 1929, you're going to have the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre is going to create the 1934 National Firearms Act. It's going to create the National 1934, and then this Firearms Act is going to be brought to court in the 1939 case of United States versus Miller. This is the case based on the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And then the Supreme Tyranny, the people who we do not elect in 1939, that's going to be the Hughes Court. The Hughes Court, what they're going to do is they're going to uphold the 1934 National Firearms Act that's going to infringe on our Second Amendment right. And who was the Hughes Court? That would be a conservative Supreme Court. Every single bit of gun legislation that's used against us where our Second Amendment's been infringed upon has been by a conservative, not by a liberal. In case you didn't know that. Now you know. Welcome to knowledge. So every time you talk about, oh, we want a conservative or we want a liberal, at the Supreme Court level, they're the same. They're against you. They're against me. They're against liberty. They're against freedom. They're against us having the right to defend ourselves against the alcohol gangs. And who are the alcohol gangs? It's the cops. Thank you, Mark. Beautiful. Perfect. I'm going to read that again. Let me just read what he said. In February 14th, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, St. Valentine's Day is February 14th, 7 members and associates of the George Bugs Moran bootlegging gang were lined against a wall and shot dead in the garage at 2122 North Clark Street. And they were wearing police uniforms. They were from head to toe dressed as cops, just so you know. And I believe that was that in Chicago or was that in Boston? Was that in Chicago or Boston, Mark? Can you tell me the information? Can you tell me the information, please, sir? Thank you, I appreciate it. And so now the Seabury Commission is going to come out, and then right here, we're going to move forward here. I hate to leave behind Harry. Before we leave Harry, let's go to the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. Chicago, yes, it was in Chicago. Thank you, I appreciate that. I was pretty sure it's Chicago. I just don't want to be wrong. So the 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act, this is where Harry Anslinger takes the floor of Congress and he says the exact words that smoking marijuana makes darkies think that they're as good as white people. Those are his exact words. That a 14-year-old girl leaves for the weekend with 2 black guys who are smoking marijuana. She comes back with syphilis. Those are his exact words. He says, smoking marijuana equals pregnancy of a white woman by a black man. That's the exact words Harry Anslinger said on the congressional floor. And of course, Congress overwhelmingly then creates the Marijuana Tax Act. And who's that written by? Why is it called the Tax Act? Because Andrew Mellon was Secretary of the Treasury, and that's what he could put into Congress. So he does. And then that same year, Andrew Mellon dies. Harry Anslinger has married his daughter. So now Harry Anslinger becomes heir to the throne of fossil fuel industry, the tree industry, the newspaper industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the plastic industry. And so Harry Anslinger is going to die in 1967, I believe, 1962, with $19 million, a career cop, because he inherited Andrew Mellon's fortune. The same year he passes the Marijuana Tax Act, he dies. And then Harry Anslinger, who is head of the Federal Narcotics Agency in 1930, a created agency, the agency of the Federal Narcotics Agency is just invented. It is just invented by Herbert Hoover. Here. Herbert Hoover just creates the Federal Narcotics Agency, and then he appoints Harry Anslinger. He appoints Harry Anslinger. He just appoints him. Anybody here been appointed to their job? Have you been appointed? Do you think this is a freaking appointment I'm doing over here? And what does that do exactly? Let me tell you exactly what it does. The reason why it gets me so pissed off. That's what it does right there. That's what it does right there. This is what Harry Anslinger did right here. You can give Harry Anslinger the credit and Herbert Hoover the credit who appointed Harry. He just appointed him. He just said, you're appointed to the head of the Federal Narcotics Agency because you pointed out that smoking marijuana makes white women want to sleep with black guys. My conservative friends, I hate to tell you this. It's against black people. Under the guise of racism. If it doesn't make you mad, you're not alive. You're not alive. When you know that 7.5 million people have been put in prison since Terry, then you feel the same way that I do. One of those people happened to be my father, who spent 21 years in a cage. And for every single drug dealer that they arrested, a new one popped up. But my dad spent 21 years in a cage. What good did it do me? It ruined me. It ruined my life. It ruined my family. It broke up my family unit. It destroyed everything about my family. For what? For what? For what? For Harry Anslinger and his cohorts to be rich as hell? You guys, if my website is down, these are my apps right here. Just hit me on my pay apps and I'll send you guys a poster. Just hit me on a DM and I'll send you guys a poster through email, and I will send you guys a poster. If you guys would be so kind, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is what I do for a living. These are my applications that I use for pay apps. If you want to take a screenshot, if you learn anything at all from me, thank you so much for your support. I do appreciate it. If you guys can see those different pay apps. Thanks a lot. So, Harry Anslinger is appointed to the Federal Narcotics Agency in 1930. The Federal Narcotics Agency will become an agency that we're all aware of today called the DEA. That's what it turns into. Harry Anslinger will sit at the head of the Federal Narcotics Agency from 1930 until So you got Edgar J. Hoover, 1924 to 1974, head of the FBI. Harry Anslinger is going to be head of the Federal Narcotics Agency from 1930 until 1960, 30 years, and then he's going to die in 62 or 67. I can't remember the exact years. I have dyslexia, so I get a little bit. So now right here, what's happened with Prohibition? What's happened with Prohibition? We've lost our Second Amendment right. We've created the war on drugs, subvertly here through the 1914 Harrison Act. We've lost our ability to carry guns. The Prohibition has created the industrial prison complex. It's going to eventually create the 1930 Federal Narcotics Agency. It's going to create the monopoly on fossil fuels, on the newspapers, on nylon, on DuPont. It's going to ban hemp, which is going to be the primary source of energy that's going to happen through India. 1924 here, the League of Nations, which is the League of Industrialized Nations. Every single industrialized nation in America, Sweden, France, all of them are in the League of Nations in 1924. In 1925, J.D. Rockefeller is going to give a grant to the Museum Egyptian of Cairo. I believe that's going to be December of 1924, J.D. Rockefeller is going to give a $10 million grant to the Museum Egyptian of Cairo. And why does he do that? Because Egypt is thinking about using fossil fuels, not using fossil fuels, is thinking about using hemp for energy. And so J.D. Rockefeller then just gives a $10 million grant to the Museum Egyptian of Cairo, the Cairo Museum. And why does he do that specifically? So that they won't use hemp as a primary source of fuel, and the League of Nations is going to ban cannabis because they don't want the other countries to use hemp as fuel. And this is all done through policing, all done through Harry Anslinger. Harry Anslinger is then, now I'm gonna come back to Harry, but first we're gonna go 1949, 1950, and the 1949 Brooklyn grand jury is gonna talk about police gambling payouts. So, now we're gonna come back to Harry into the single convention on narcotics drugs, but we're gonna get into that in a minute. But first, I'm just gonna take a little caveat here. And in 1949, here, the Brooklyn grand jury is going to talk about police gambling payoffs. So not only are police running alcohol, they're running drugs, they're running prostitutes, but they're also running all of the gambling rings. Police are either one of three things. Number one, they're the muscle for the gang. Number two, they're the organization for the gang. Or number three, police are the gang. And in 1949, with the Brooklyn grand jury, they're going to find out that the police are the gambling gang. They are the gambling gang, okay? And so then in 1950, O.W. Wilson writes Police Administration, the blueprint for professional policing in America. If someone will type his name here, it's O.W. Wilson, and he's going to write Police Administration. So if you guys can type that down here, so people who are going to read the live chat later, it's O.W. Wilson. He's going to write a book called Police Administration, and that Police Administration guide handbook is still in effect today. That's still relevant today. That's still going on today. O.W. Wilson, and the name of the book is Police Administration, the blueprint for professionalized policing. 1950s, police radios are the call girls, and then 1960, police are used to suppress civil rights. So just so you know, 1954 comes around, Brown versus Board of Education is going to create a legal, and I talk about this all the time about Earl Warren. Earl Warren is not some great humanitarian who passes Brown versus Board of Education, because he's some great humanitarian. Oh no. Earl Warren is the same guy who talked Franklin Delano Roosevelt into locking up 100,000 Japanese people, and that's the 1944 case of Korematsu versus United States, because in 1942, Earl Warren convinces FDR to lock up 100,000 Japanese. Well, Korematsu is one of those Japanese people. Just so you know, FDR, known as the greatest president in U.S. history, also created the first concentration camps in America. Concentration camps. In New York City. In Grand Central Park, which were concentration camps. And what are concentration camps? As you know from earlier, when you put a large group of people in a small concentration and then you re-educate them. Like what's coming for us, for bird flu. So as we continue forward. So then what's going to happen, Harry Anslinger, remember, we talked earlier about Harry inheriting all of Andrew Mellon's fortune because he marries his daughter-in-law. He dies with $19 million. Harry Anslinger's estate today is worth $250 million. Did you know that? Harry Anslinger's estate's worth $250 million. And so in 1961, when he cuts his teeth in, let me set this down because this is a lot of information. I didn't know I would go quite this deep into it. So Harry Anslinger he's gonna inherit Andrew Mellon's fortune in 1937, and then by 1961, he's gonna create the single convention on narcotics drugs. And where is this gonna be held? In New York City. And why is this so important? Because he invites his friends from The Hague that he met over in World War I. When he worked as a double agent for America and he went and spied on Germany and he was very successful. That's how we won World War I. He was a big part of the success. And so who did he meet over at The Hague? He met the guys who were the founders of the World Health Organization. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. This is factual. And so then in 1961, he invites those guys over from the World Health Organization. And what do they say in 1961? That if you smoke marijuana, it will make you become an axe murderer at one toke. That's what they testify. And so then Harry Anslinger's not done. Remember, he's a war hero. He then goes to every industrialized country. And what are the countries he threatens the most? the Philippines. He threatens the Philippines. Because remember, William Howard Taft had already occupied the Philippines, and William Howard Taft and Harry Anslinger were good friends. And so when William Howard Taft had terrorized the Philippines in 1961 at the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, this is in Manhattan. So Harry Anslinger invites every single nation over. He's going to give them a Visa card. Back then it was a Sears card, and they're going to give them a room at the Waldorf. And he explains to them, if you don't criminalize marijuana as we have, we're going to bomb you. Didn't you guys just see? We just nuked Japan. This is Harry Anslinger. He ruined our country. Why do you think I get so pissed off? He ruined it. So what does the Philippines do? They say if you smoke marijuana, it's a death sentence. What does Thailand do? It's a death sentence. So now as we get more into modern policing, you guys are going to know a lot of this information, but I'm just going to recap it here, and I'm going to try to get off this thing as quickly as I possibly can. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time, but this information has to be disseminated. And so now as we move forward here, at the Single Convention on Narcotics Drugs, the World Health Organization is going to take the stage in Manhattan and tell every industrialized country that one puff of marijuana will turn your kid into an axe murderer, it'll turn your wife comatose, and your white wife will want to sleep with black guys. You think I'm not kidding? I'm not joking. This is what the World Health Organization says. I did quit smoking marijuana a couple of months ago, but that's only because I'm touring the country and I don't want to take a chance on one of these police officers having any kind of leg into my life and saying I smell marijuana. You can test my blood and I don't have marijuana in my system. So then after 1961, what happens after 1961? After 1961, you're going to get Kerr versus California. What are the 4 cases that you and I must overturn? One of those cases is Kerr. Carroll versus United States is based on prohibition. Brenniger is an extension of Kerr versus California, that goes into Kerr versus California, which is the precursor for Terry versus Ohio. Kerr is based on the idea that the World Health Organization said that marijuana turns your kid into an axe murderer with one puff. And so then when they're chasing the Kerrs down, they just go into their houses. And how come they feel so empowered to go into their houses? Well, because Harry Anslinger at the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, he's criminalized marijuana internationally. As a matter of fact, the ruling from the World Health Organization, the holding, is that every marijuana plant in the world should be eradicated within 25 years. Of today, 1961. That would have been by 1985. But by 1985, the CIA is planting crack all over South Central. That's another story. So then, in the 1960s, after the Kerr ruling allows police just to simply knock on your door and come running in. Then after that, in 1967, 1968, police, they're going to abuse the Vietnam protesters. And what is the 67, 68 abuse of the Vietnam protesters going to do? What is that going to do? That's going to create the riots in our country, the 1967. If you guys haven't heard of the summer of 67, it's right there. These are just a few of the cities and states, the few of the cities that rioted in 1967. And why did they riot? Because of the abuse by police. That's why those riots happened. And they weren't riots, they were massacres. Because the cops massacred people and then they went home and went to bed. A couple times a couple cops died, but for the most part, it was the cops massacring people. And so, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so then in 1971, Nixon's going to declare war on drugs, which is really a war on people. And then I've talked about this on dozens of occasions. There's 9 canons of the federal government, in case you didn't know that. The federal government breaks down into 3 branches, but 9 canons. And then all 9 of those canons are then pointed, and the administration and the literature and the red tape and the bureaucracy is then pointed at the war on drugs. And so then what's going to happen from the 1968 Terry versus Ohio? Terry versus Ohio is going to happen in June 10th of 1968. And then in October of 68, I'm sorry I have this all covered up. I should take this off. But you're going to get the 1968 Omnibus Crime Bill of 1968. And what is this going to do? This is going to create the Gun Control Act of 68 in the Omnibus Crime Bill. You're going to have the Gun Control Act right there. You see? And by the way, there's not tape on your poster. There's not tape on your poster. There it is. There it is. Okay. Okay. And so that's going to create, so you're going to have the 68 Terry versus Ohio, which is going to create the cops can grab you, and then the 68 omnibus crime bill, where you can't carry a gun, even a seed of marijuana, is carried over from the Boggs Act of 1952. And then you're going to have in 1971 the war on drugs, which is going to create the combination of Terry plus the war on drugs is going to create the modern day penal system. As you can see here, let me tighten down my tripod here. And as you can see here, you know, you can just take a look at it. The combination of the bad policing plus Terry versus Ohio, you don't got to be a rocket scientist here. You can just take a look yourself and see what happens after we pass the war on drugs. And by the way, John Erkelman is going to tell everybody that he wanted to lock up blacks and hippies. And he did. And then you got Terry v. Ohio here, and then there's the modern day prison system here. And this is all based on Harry Anslinger making sure that he can have marijuana criminalized. And today, what's the number one reason in every city, state, and town why someone goes to jail? It's for marijuana. It's for marijuana. Whew. You know, I've dedicated my life to this. You know, I've dedicated my life to just learning this information to disseminate it to you guys. So all of my videos are, you know, you can cut them up, you can take little clips of them, you can share them on your own YouTube page. You can do anything you want with these videos. I don't care. I don't care. If you need me to sign an e-release for you, I'll sign an e-release for you. You can take any part of my video you want and you can use it. I want to make sure that this information is disseminated long after I'm gone. So don't think there's any barrier to using any of my videos at all whatsoever. I will not put a copyright claim against you. That will never happen. It won't ever happen by me. So you guys are welcome to do that. I do have T-Roy has $5 off on my coupons and posters. If you guys are so inclined, I do appreciate it. If my website's not working, just hit me on my deletelaws.com. My website has been hacked today. This is my Venmo, and this is my Cash App. If you're so inclined, this is my cup of coffee fund. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee, thanks a lot. And I'm talking about a Starbucks cup of coffee, just plain old black. Just like I like my women, hot and black. Okay. So there it is right there. Venmo right here, and then here's my Cash App. If you learn absolutely anything at all from me today, please don't hesitate to buy me a cup of coffee. If 110 people buy me a cup of coffee, then I'm able to buy this new sound machine that I'm going to plug into my phone here so you won't hear an echo when I talk anymore. When I won't hear an echo when I talk anymore. So take a screenshot of that, guys. I don't want to sit here and sell stuff all day, but I would appreciate it if you guys would pick up my ebook or pick up my poster, or both. I do have hard copy posters available. They're $99 or $135. I can't send those out for free. BLM hacked me, and so I'm still down financially. Yeah, that's you know. By the way, there's you can use that joke on a multitude of different ways. You can say, you know, just, you know, I'm just going to leave it hot and black. How about that? But just imagine if you talk about cold brew, or just to talk about I don't want to say anything else, but it's a pretty funny thing, isn't it? You guys do me a favor, share this video. And by the way, I did not finish. Let me just give you, just so that it's in the chat, just so it's in the super chat here. Let's just go ahead and finish this up. You have the 1972 Knapp Commission, K-N-A-P-P. Would you guys please type that down right here? The 1970 to 72 Knapp Commission, and that's where you're going to have Serpico, who's going to testify. And then in 1970s, police are going to unionize. You're going to have the blue flu throughout the 1970s. In 71 in New York City, in 74 in Baltimore, and in 75 in San Francisco, you're going to have the blue flu. That's a term, so please type that in there, the blue flu. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. And then in 1980, you're going to have the Taylorization of the police, which is going to reduce police size, increase division of labor. It went from one-man cars, from two-man cars to one-man cars. You're going to further isolate police throughout the 1980s, and you're going to have what's called community-oriented policing services. They're going to start in the 1990s. But then you're going to talk about the police's effectiveness throughout the 80s is going to be reduced dramatically, the blue flu. And you want to make sure that you mention in the blue flu, 1971 New York City, 1974 Baltimore. You son of a. I guess it wasn't meant to be. I think we got enough information here for this one today. You know, I think this is a lot of information. What we'll do is we will continue on this. I will continue on this lecture, and we will start at night. So if anybody reminds me, we will start at the Knapp Commission, because there's still another hour of police corruption and disappointment that we're going to have to go over. And until we get checks and balances on police, and if you ever hear anyone say police commission, you bite their head off. We don't want a police commission. We don't want a civilian oversight board. We want a new third party. That's what defund means. Defund means take a third of the money or half of the money from cops and create a new third party organization whose only goal is to have men's ambition counter men's ambition. James Madison from Charles de Montesquieu. Okay? And that's what we got to get to. That's where we got to get. Yeah, long time today. I've been out here for 3 hours. So thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. If you guys can, pick up my poster, pick up my ebook. I really appreciate it. If you don't have the money, I'll give it to you for free. I got to send out about 30. I got about 30 emails, which I'm really grateful for. Thanks, guys, for requesting free posters for people who couldn't afford them. And most of the people who requested them are on fixed income, or they're on hard times, which, you know, God bless you. I got you. I'm sending out posters tonight as soon as I get off here. Thanks, you guys, for coming by my live stream. I really appreciate it. Share this video. Don't hesitate to take little clips of this video, post it on your own page. I don't care. I just want the message to get out to as many people as we possibly can. And so that's what I'm looking at. A big special shout out to T-Roy Accountability. Thank you so much, Josh, for walking me through the painful stuff today. My email address is deletelaws@gmail, or you can reach me at chille@situationcreator. Thank you so much. You guys have my pay apps. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Dr. Vegetable, thanks for picking up my poster the other day. I really appreciate it. Dr. Sean Berry, thank you for picking up my poster. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Yeah, tell 2 people, share this video as far as you can, and I am going to get the heck out of here. All right, you guys have a good night, and I will talk to you guys real soon, all right? We'll see you in the next one. I'll see you tomorrow night on this channel, this page, and we'll see you soon. Later.